Hello and welcome back to On Workbench. Today we're taking a look at one of the oldest tools in the Kobalt 24 volt lineup. This is the 24 volt, we'll call it the multi-purpose 4-inch saw. It comes as a tool only. And a couple ways you know this is a little bit old in the tooth, pardon my voice today, is if you look at the top and there is a tool grid at the top that even has the old compact folding light. Great light, wish they still made it. Otherwise, very thin lineup, but still a very, very useful tool in 2023. So, look at the specs here on this. Couple key ones here, 12,000 RPMs, max motor life, low vibration, 3.5 times longer. But really, the actual key to me on the spec list here is you've got, this is compatible with various Kobalt blades, but also with Dremel Ultra Saw blades with a 7/16 inch arbor. And so that is really key because you can find other accessories in the Dremel line, and we'll test that today, that they do fit, because to me, this is basically a Dremel Ultra Saw dressed up for Halloween in Kobalt 24 volt clothing for use with your Kobalt tool lineup. Go ahead and cut off the straps with this. Again, I picked this up probably about 1.5 years ago. There was somebody on Reddit that was asking me to review this. My apologies. I thought I was going to get to this project a little sooner than what I did. My apologies to you. This cost about $129, which was the tool, and it came with a free 2-pack of batteries just like this. Even came with the fast charger. I know in 2023 this has been replaced with a newer charger that's even faster than this. 2 amp hour batteries at the time. You watch your combo deals with your Kobalt tools, you can get quite the value proposition. All this for 129 bucks. I think that's a pretty good deal if you ask me. Now as we unbox this tool, we will turn this around and we'll see what we get inside. First things first, we have our manual with some blades. Let's go ahead and see what kind of blades we get with this out of the box. Each blade appears to be, oh, and we have a hex key. So we've got 3 blades, each separately wrapped. We've got a metal cutting cutoff wheel. Basically, think of this when you're using this as a horizontal angle grinder. Obviously a little smaller than your typical one here. We've got a wood cutting blade, 3.9 inches. I don't know why they can't just make it even 4 inches. 3.9 inch wood flush cut saw. So if you need to flush cut something up against some baseboard or otherwise, perhaps some flooring. All right, you got that. We have an auxiliary handle. Hollow, nothing special about this. We have a dust chute buried at the bottom. And then we have the tool all nicely bagged up. In case you're wondering, the date code on this tool is October 2020 for when this is made. And so you can see we've got a nice shoe here on the bottom. Some grooves in here so it doesn't get caught up on any other dust on your surface. We have our arbor. And we've got a spot here, we'll show this in a minute. For your wheels, we got a spindle lock, a place for the handle that is not a vacuum chute. And then we have a depth of cut adjustment knob right here. Flip it open, springs all the way down. If I close this up here, you can see we've got our depth of cut is marked in inches on one side and metric on the other. So it either goes up to 7/8 of an inch or up to, I believe that would be 20 millimeters on the other side. And down here on the grip, we've got our switch. You have to flip up this little tooth here, a little bar, before you can actually close the paddle switch. Nice, comfortable grip there, like that, one hand. This does have blade left. I'm sure some people are going to complain they'd rather see blade right. Obviously, your mileage may vary for what your preference is on this. Pick one and go with it. To me, the advantage of this is the fact that this works with the other Kobalt 24 volt tools, whereas if you get the cordless Ultra Saw, you're kind of locked into the limited selection of Dremel tools. The other tool platforms do not match something similar to this, so this is kind of a unique, special animal in the Kobalt lineup that I think is actually one of the lineup defining tools. It's kind of unique. which is what draws my attention to this tool.
Here we can see a Dremel Ultra Saw here in store at Menards. We can see the similarities right off the start with the battery position being at the rear, the depth stop for that sole plate, the sole plate with a similar groove pattern in it. We've got the recess on the side to be able to have a flush cut blade, the washers for the arbor, a spot for the auxiliary handle. Our stop trigger or start trigger is a little bit different. $149 though. To me, this is where it really starts to change. And really, think about the battery intercompatibility. What else can you use that Dremel battery on?
All right, so now as we look at the tool here, remember it came with a hex key. So then to be able to remove the screw here, to be able to get a blade installed, we're gonna need to press this little spindle lock key here on top and work on spinning this around until that, there we go, that clicks into place. Then now this is a left-handed screw, so we've got righty-loosey, lefty-tighty. It'd be nice if this were able to be stored on board or somehow otherwise a toolless blade change. And then you can see where the spindle comes apart here with a little arbor spacers here. And this has an asymmetrical arbor. So now the first blade I'm going to put on is going to be the wood cutting blade. Now it'd be nice if they actually had a more proper carbide blade for this, more like what you get with a circular saw. And if you use this blade, it's going to hide in here like this, or a grinder wheel. But that is why we have the flush cut blade, and why that blade guard looks a little bit funny like that, because we can take this blade, install it with the blade out like this. So then we've got a blade that is able to come much more flush up against the edge of the saw. Now it's still not perfectly flush because there's still a little bit of a flange right here on the side, but it still comes much more closer to the edge to be able to get something in a really tight space. So then you just set the blade on like that, put your spindle nut on, or the other washer, and then we will take our screw here. Again, righty loosey, lefty tighty. Use a spindle lock on the back. Just like that. And then if you want to install the auxiliary handle, it goes right here on top. If you want that extra handle position there, completely optional. And if you're worried about dust, we have our little dust chute here on the side, and that just simply snaps in. Let me take the handle out here. Just snaps in the backside here like this, a little press fit. And then you can rotate this to the whatever angle you need for your dust control, or take it out completely. The choice is yours for how you want to configure your dust port, if you use it at all. Now, in case you're wondering, the hex key that came with it can also be replaced with a 5mm hex socket or another 5mm wrench. So if you've got that, you could use that instead of the hex key. Just remember, lefty-loosey, a little bit backwards from what you might be expecting. So just remember, 5mm is the solution there. Now, in case you're wondering about the handle, here is the handle off my Kobalt angle grinder. We'll go ahead and we'll move the dust port out of the way. And then if we put this in right here, yes, this does work also. So very handy that your handles are all interchangeable, whether it is with this tool, your angle grinder, or otherwise. These Kobalt tools or handles are all interchangeable. So now when it comes to batteries, I think the obvious choice is going to be one of these 2 amp-hour batteries. That's nice and compact, that fits the size of the tool very nicely and proportionately. Let's go ahead and turn it on and we can hear it run. And you can see there's a blade break there. But what I also want to double check is with the ultimate output battery, as tools of this generation, particularly the angle grinder, had some, we'll call it anxiety with how well it would run with the ultimate output battery. So let's go ahead and put that on. Obviously, I still think the 2 amp hour is more proportionately balanced, but still, you know, one of the advantages of a tool like this is that you can use it across all of your batteries in the platform. Flip it over and let's give it a chance. And yep, that still works too. So that is fantastic that that works with our ultimate output battery as well. Now, what I think is an interesting comparison here is my little Milwaukee tool. I know you don't see a lot of Milwaukee on my channel, but I do have brands or tools from other brands. And so I've had this Milwaukee M12 tool for a while. It's got a Dremel blade on it. This is the, I believe it is the Saw Max blade that's compatible with that. And so on this one of the really neat features when you put it into the angle grinder is you can actually reverse the direction that it spins so that it throws sparks away from you, which is really slick. It's got a little nice little protective cover over the side of the blade that this doesn't have, but this does not have a flush cutting option like this does. And this is also going to exceed it in terms of that depth of cut. So you're going to have to pick your poison for what's going to be optimal for you. If you're on the Kobalt platform, this is obviously the way to go. But this is another Dremel compatible tool, which I think is just interesting where Dremel is the default distributor of blades, because you can't really find Milwaukee blades for this. You got to buy Dremel blades for it. So now that we're talking about blades, let's take a look at some other options for this Kobalt saw. So we've got, here is a Dremel Ultra Saw US 520 blade, which is also compatible with the RotoZip Zip Mate. Let's go ahead and give that a shot. Now this should just go up and slide right on in like that. Perfect. In fact, you may not even actually need the extra arbor there, but I'm going to put it on anyway because that's going to increase the holding power by having the extra washer in place. And so now if I want to cut a piece of metal more like a circular saw, then with my angle grinder, you've got this nice base plate under here, where I think this actually complements the angle grinder quite nicely for metalworking. So you've got some other options, because this is really kind of a unique setup. I'm not much of a welder myself and metalworker, but I think if you were, there might be some really good strategic advantages of having your angle grinder and this to be able to figure out what you're going to do with some of your metalworking. Really neat and kind of a one-of-a-kind setup that you can pull off here. I should note that the Kobalt blade that comes with it is just a little bit thinner than this Dremel Ultra Saw blade. Maybe about half the thickness, much more of a cutoff wheel, and this is much more of a grinding wheel. So there are a variety of thicknesses and styles for the wheels that you can use with this tool. All right, so what I got set up here is I got a piece of car siding. So I've got a little interior project I'm working on right now that I'm using this as part of the trim. And I'm inside the house, I've got a flush cut one edge of this car siding up against one of my walls that I've built, and so I need to trim that down. I've got a little sample here set up in a vise here to be able to test the tool out today to see how bad tear out is or splintering with this Dremel blade. And so before I go too far, get out the safety glasses, keep yourself safe. If you're using tools like this, make sure you're always wearing safety glasses. And now I've added the handle here for an extra bit of control so I can practice cutting this material, and I want to see primarily how bad the tear out is. All right, that's interesting. It looks like I should have been just a little bit deeper and more flush with the material. There we go. So let me take this. All right, so this is about a 3/4 inch material, or 1x, just to lay this on the plate here. You can see that the blade sits just proud of the material when it's in its maximum cutting position. So this is basically good in the wood cutting mode for up to a 3/4 inch or 1x material. And the edge that it left, almost perfect and seamless. And so I think this is actually going to be perfect for trying to flush cut what I need to do on my project inside the house, other than all the dust that it just spewed all over the place. All right, so now I'm going to do a little bit more cutting with this, and we'll see how well it performs. All right, so now we're inside the house. I've got some of this car siding right here that's already flush here, but I got a couple pieces going up higher that I need to trim up and try to at least stay close to flush with this 2x8 over here. And so to do that, I'm going to use the saw that we just looked at in the garage, and we're going to see how far we can go. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is that this dust port here is going to get in the way for how far up I'm going to go. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the dust port. As much as I want to keep it on, it's just going to get in the way right now. So we'll just have to deal with that as it goes. Then I'm going to try to keep the auxiliary handle on as long as I can. Safety glasses on, obviously. So the earlier parts of this video were shot in 2023. You might have heard the dates a little bit weird. It's now into April of 2024, and I've been using this saw off and on for about the last year. Is this the first tool I pick up for any cutting job? Absolutely not. But sometimes I'm just cutting a little bit of plywood. I don't want to get out the bulk of the circular saw. This has been a great go-to saw. I've switched back and forth between the flush cutting blade and the regular blades. I've got the flush cut blade on there right now simply because, well, it still cuts wood just fine. Yes, it gives you a different line that you have to think about when you're looking at the plate for where it's going to cut, but that's fine. I can adapt to it. It's not that big of a deal, and it cuts really well. It has a nice clean finish. Only in 1x material, though. If you're cutting 2x material, it's not really going to work. I mean, maybe you can kind of get halfway through your 2x material and then use something else if you're in a really tight spot. The only other real issue here I see is that, or that I've had, is with the paddle switch on here, makes it just a little bit awkward to control to make sure it's going straight, keeping that up there. That's just a personal thing. Maybe your hands are a little steadier than mine are in that regard. But I could really see if you live in an apartment or a condo and you need to just maybe make some quick cuts and some plywood to build some quick shelves, this could really be the go-to tool for you. It takes up very little space in a toolbox. And for now in 2024, I don't know, a little less than 60 bucks, obviously not with a battery. It's a heck of a deal, and I highly recommend this. This is just a quirky little saw. You won't use it all the time, but when you need something small and handy, this might be your go-to tool. Now, I've not done much with the dust collection on it, admittedly. I found that to be a little more awkward to have and not as useful when I've tried to use it, so I've just kind of stopped using that, but that's okay. I can live with it. I mean, I'm cutting stuff. I'm expecting sawdust anyway. It's not going to be perfectly clean. And I think if you're in metalworking, the fact that you can also double this as a grinder to be able to cut and be able to make a nice 90-degree angle cut is something that's just not really duplicatable in any other tool, in any other common power tool battery platform. And which really makes this stand out, I think, between this and an angle grinder, it's very complementary tools between the two of them. We can get that nice 90-degree cut through metal, and you can also double it back to wood. I've not done any flush cutting with it, so obviously your mileage may vary on that, but this is dollar for dollar, maybe one of the best value saws you can buy other than a jigsaw. So with that, any questions or comments, put it down below. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a great day. Bye.